Chapter 30. Slovak Roots. My parents emigrated from Slovakia, formerly Czechoslovakia, and their heritage was a constant presence in my upbringing. From language to food and traditions, I was always aware of my Slovak roots. While my father believed that I should focus on English and Canadian culture, my mom insisted I also learn formal Slovak. They were both deeply proud of their heritage, and though this was not a bad thing, I often felt like an anomaly outside of my cousins. No one in my school or neighborhood was Slovak. A year after my mom passed, Jean and I took a European vacation with our daughter Jackie. One of our destinations was Haniska, a small village in eastern Slovakia, my mother's birthplace. Many of my relatives still live in that region, and what began as a vacation quickly turned into a journey of rediscovery. Growing up, I had met Slovak relatives who visited us on the farm in Maidstone, but this trip felt different. As the son of first-generation Slovaks, my arrival in Haniska was seen as something of a homecoming. We were welcomed with open arms, and the emotional impact took me by surprise. I hadn't anticipated how much our visit would mean to them and to us. We were ceremoniously taken from house to house, treated like royalty, and introduced to relatives I hadn't even known existed. Speaking with my relatives, however, proved to be a challenge. My Slovak was inadequate, shaped by the dialect my mother spoke, a vernacular more familiar with her contemporaries from the village. While my attempts at Slovak were met with patience, I found the best communication came with cousins my own age, and especially with that of my uncle Tomasz, my mother's eldest brother. His speech patterns closely matched what I had grown up hearing, making our conversations easier. Language evolves over time, and Slovak is no exception. Since my mother emigrated, decades of Soviet influence, particularly after the Warsaw Pact invasion of 1968, had infused the Slovak language with Russian words and phrases. The result was a version of Slovak that, in some ways, had diverged significantly from what I had learned at home. One evening, while drinking traditional Slovak whiskey with my cousins, I used an old Slovak phrase about the whiskey, something I had learned my grandfather say when I was young. My cousins immediately turned to each other, puzzled, and asked me to repeat it. When I did, they became animated, speaking excitedly. They explained that the phrase was likely an ancient Slovak expression, long forgotten, hibernated. Yet my use of it triggered a memory from their own childhoods. They were apparently genuinely moved, thanking me for unknowingly reviving a piece of their local dialect. Apparently the phrase had fallen out of use half a century ago, but by bringing it back from Canada, I had returned it to its origins. They vowed to keep it alive, taking pride in its connection to their village heritage. A different way of building. One of the more striking cultural differences I noticed between Slovakia and Canada, and all of Europe for that matter, was in home construction. In Slovakia, houses are built primarily from masonry, stone, concrete, and steel, reserving the construction of roofs for the wood. These materials ensured durability. In Canada, where wood is abundant, we rely on wood frame houses, a tradition rooted in our pioneer past. The contrast became even clearer when my Slovak nephew Stefan visited us for a month the year after our European trip. During his stay, he helped me build a new deck at the back of our house. As we worked, he commented that in Slovakia, Wood is mainly used to create forms for pouring concrete, never as a primary building material. A concrete deck back home, he said, would last 100 years or more, while my wooden deck just after 10 years was already showing signs of weathering. Slovak houses were simple, rectangular structures designed for efficiency and practicality. Canadian homes, on the other hand, often feature irregular shapes, multiple roof lines, and recessed or protruding walls, visually interesting, but sometimes inefficient in terms of usable space. One of the most baffling differences is our reliance on asphalt shingles, which deteriorate quickly. With climate change accelerating wear and tear, these shingles now last about a decade at best. During the warmer months in my neighborhood, it's common to hear the sound of nail guns and hammers as workers replace old shingles with new ones, knowing full well they'll be back in another 10 years to do it all over again. In contrast, Europeans use clay tiles, steel or composite materials, roofs designed to last for many decades. A 100-year-old house in Slovakia isn't considered particularly old, and older homes blend seamlessly with newer ones. In Canada, houses that aren't even that old are often torn down and replaced with new wood frame structures, perpetuating a cycle of short-term construction. The differences in building methods reflect something deeper, an ingrained mindset about longevity and resource use. While we in North America embrace the convenience of readily available materials, the European approach emphasizes durability and practicality. Neither is necessarily better or worse, but seeing these differences firsthand made me reflect on the way we build, the way we live, the traditions we hold onto, whether in language, construction, or culture itself.